We have a ton of news to talk about heading into the biggest draft weekend of the season. And we're also talking some underdog best ball here on the Friday edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. We're sponsored by Fantrax, the most customizable free commissioner service in fantasy sports, and Underdog Fantasy, home of the biggest best ball contest in the industry. Great time of year to be a baseball fan, to be a fantasy player. I had my main event draft last night. We'll talk a little bit about that, what went down. And Todd, it was great seeing you, man, in New York. I want to just publicly one last time thank you for all you did, you and Jeff and everybody who had a hand in Tout Wars. It was a great time. It was surreal, being in Times Square to do a fantasy draft. I have to pinch myself still. It was awesome. So thanks again for making it a great weekend.
Peter Kreutzer, Ron Chandler, and Brian Walton were all involved.
Yes, I forgot to mention that.
Yep, got to give a thank you to Rick Wolf for hooking us up with Tito Murphy's, which I don't want to, spoiler alert, we could be there again next year.
It was awesome, man.
Yeah, I've not heard anything bad about it. Also, would like to publicly congratulate Rick Wilton, the 2023 recipient of the Lar Michaels Zen and Now Award. Rick was the original brainchild, or First Pitch Arizona was Rick's brainchild. I know Ron Chandler and Baseball HQ are often credited, but it was Rick Wilton who came up with the first pitch forum, and coincidental with the AFL, which at the time was new. And the community in general that the first pitch forum has fostered is worth, alone worth the award for Rick. But he's also one of the most selfless, and when he's active, very helpful people in the industry. He was kind of the pioneer of the injury aspect of fantasy. So was very nice to get him on the Zoom and surprise him with the Zen and Now Award.
Yeah, that was really cool. Rick Wilton was not in attendance, but they got that rigged up on the TV, and he was emotional. And I think if I were to ever receive that, and I don't expect to because I'm really not that zen of a person, but if I ever were, I would be emotional. I would be emotional too, because Lar Michaels was such an incredible person, and just to have that, to be honored in that way is just so cool. So I'm glad Rick Wilton was acknowledged with that award, and just see that genuine emotion was really, really cool. Well, Todd, today is kind of becoming Anthony Volpe Day, it seems like. No, I drafted him last night. Little Barry Horowitz for those watching. A little pat on the back. No, it could blow up in my face, but I got him in the 11th round last night. Then we get news this morning that Anthony Volpe of the Yankees has been receiving support from high-level voices within the organization in his bid to make the opening day roster. That per The Athletic. Then right before we came on the show, on this pod, while we were still doing the XM show today, Volpe hit another home run. So still nothing announced, but the fact that he was leading off for what seemed like kind of the A squad and a split squad day for the Yankees, all signs seem to be pointing to Volpe being the shortstop, and not only that, the opening day leadoff hitter potentially for the Yankees.
Yeah, and it's not as if Oswald Peraza hasn't earned some playing time himself. I mean, this is Volpe, just doing it on his own, not by default. And that's good to see. And as we've talked about a couple times so far today, it may not be an either-or scenario with Volpe and Peraza. The Yankees may find a way to get both of them in the lineup, and who knows. Now, all right, to be fair, Peraza is hitting 171 this spring. He must have gone into a little bit of a slump, because I remember it being a little bit better than that when I last looked. I think it's more about, even though he's slumping, he's only fanned 7 times. This is Peraza in 41 plate appearances. I I'm not as worried about the results. If he's putting the ball in play, it's going to fall. So, but yeah, Volpe's putting the ball out of play.
Yeah, 3 homers now, I believe, and 5 steals to go with it. And yeah, it seems like, well, I heard a report from Brian Hoke of MLB.com, or saw it on Twitter, that Aaron Boone was going to allow his players to pound the table for their favorite shortstop candidate. It seems like a lot of the vets spoke up for Volpe and had his back. So Judge has gone on record saying if you're a big leaguer, you should be in the big leagues.
Yep.
And yeah, it seems like it's going to be madness for Volpe this weekend, especially in the main events. We'll see. But yeah, I think he's going to be going pretty high here soon enough. And that could be a big guy to swing leagues potentially if he's as good as some evaluators think Anthony Volpe is going to be. Some tough news though, Todd, this week. Really unfortunate yesterday. Rhys Hoskins carted off the field yesterday and later diagnosed with a torn ACL. So, yeah, this is a big blow to the Phillies, and he was being drafted fairly highly too. So this thins out the first base pool fair amount. You're going to seek a second opinion, but it sounds like that is indeed a ACL for Rhys Hoskins. So looks like Derek Hall taking over at first. Derek Hall was probably going to DH a fair amount anyway, so maybe doesn't affect his playing time a ton, but this definitely frees up a spot somewhere in the lineup. How they shuffle things remains to be seen, but maybe Jake Cave coming into the outfield?
Potentially. Alec Boehm could also move over to first, with a little bit of Edmundo Sosa playing some third base. You mentioned Jay Cave, used to be with the Twins, I believe, or I get the Royals and Twins.
Yeah, those were the Twins, I think.
Yeah, would play well in spurts, would get exposed for longer periods of time. Josh Harrison could play a little bit more, either at third when Boehm moving over is another possibility. Harrison's even filled in the outfield a little bit. Cave would enable Castellanos to move to DH.
I thought you were doing a Kane and Abel joke for a second.
Oh, I wish
Cave and
do I look like Jeff Erickson? Yeah, Jeff and I had some fun. We were in a couple drafts together, and either together or just he was doing the announcing auctioneering, and I was either there or vice versa. So we were having some pun contest, if you can imagine that, trying to out pun each other. But that's always a good time. But no, there are some options on the Phillies now. Who am I? I don't know that I'm moving Cave up except in NL only, but as we've talked about, and I'll continue to say into the season because I believe in it so much. The question I want to hear isn't who do you like the rest of the year? It's who do you like the next couple of weeks? And Derek Hall is going to play a lot, and he can hit. And even if he's platooning, he's going to be a platoon player worth having. He's the one I'm jumping up even more right now in my early drafts. Not my early drafts, for the early season numbers.
Sure, he may be a guy, Derek Hall, that I look to pick up in Fab this weekend. I mean, Fab's already getting going, people. Don't forget, if you've drafted your team, that you might have Fab this weekend right away. And if I've lost a hitter somewhere, maybe I do consider Derek Hall. And I'm with you on Jake Cave's just an NL only, but he's now on that NL only radar.
Yeah.
If you need an outfielder and a 5 outfielder NL only. Some big news, fairly big news anyway, out of Dodgers camp. We'll see how big a news it ends up truly being, but definitely time to take notice of James Outman of the Los Angeles Dodgers. He has been confirmed to make the opening day roster, Todd. Not only that, Dave Roberts is saying Outman's going to play a fair amount. Here's the quote passed along by Bill Plunkett of the Orange County Register, Dodgers beat writer. Quote, I want to leave it broad, but for him to be on our Major League roster and not play doesn't make any sense at all. So with that, he's going to play a good bit, end quote. Again, that was Dave Roberts on James Outman. So spoiler, when we talk underdog later, he's going to be one of my top players on the rise, James Outman. Outfield gets pretty ugly, so I like him as like a 6th outfielder if you can. And definitely much on my radar to draft as a bench bat, because looking at those outfielders, I do think he's going to play much. Chris Taylor's really struggling this spring and not really a center fielder anyway. and Peralta, Betts. There's some question marks there aside from Betts. So Outman may be a strict platoon bat, but even on the strong side of a platoon, as long as he's the primary guy somewhere in that outfield, he could be a guy you can extract some value from.
I'd feel more comfortable if it was James Hitman, or James Homerman, or I'll stop now before you get a new podcast partner and before I'm out, man. But I agree, and I don't know is if you were talking to James, he could give you a lot more of the in-depth scouting reports sort of stuff. It's all number scouting. I've never, I don't know much about his game, Outman that is, other than the numbers. He's a little bit older than, he's not really post-height prospect, but he's not one of these 21-year-old kids like Volpe, etc. He is 25. But, the numbers do look good. Decent plate approach, decent athlete. I think you're right. There's enough of an opening. Is he a center fielder long term? Probably not. But I think, again, what have you done for me lately, or what will you do for me soon? I think he fits into that category. Now, we'll talk later. I'm not so sure I'm wasting. I didn't use the word wasting. I just did. I guess subliminally I am wasting it. One of my 20 underdog picks on someone who's not playing regularly, but we'll talk about that.
Well, again, I think from those quotes, it sounds like he will be playing regularly. So I guess we'll have to see how it plays out. But I'm taking Dave Roberts at his word right now. And take these numbers with a grain of salt, but because he was old for the level, as you suggested, 25 years old between AA and AAA last year, but 125 games between AA and AAA, 31 home runs, 106 RBI, 13 stolen bases. Another caveat is that he's playing some of that in the PCL.
Yeah.
Pacific Coast League, a notoriously hitter-friendly league. Yeah. But, man, 31 homers, 106 RBI, 13 bags. Even old for the level, that's pretty impressive.
No, exactly. For sure.
Another guy catching people's attention this spring, and I drafted him last night. Again, we'll talk a little bit more in depth about the draft I did in the main event, but Hayden Wesneski, not just capturing my attention, but he's kind of, aside from Volpe, he's kind of the buzz on Twitter right now, Hayden Wesneski of the Cubs. Because yesterday, 5 strikeouts over 5 innings against the Diamondbacks, did not allow an earned run in that game. So with that outing Thursday, Hayden Wesneski now has a 2.12 ERA, 22-6 K to walk in 17 spring innings. Looks locked into that rotation there on the north side. And he's going to get opportunities. Sure, sometimes the wind will be blowing out at Wrigley and he'll probably get screwed a little bit. But outings at home against the Reds, Pirates, outings on the road in Milwaukee and in Pittsburgh. I think there are going to be a lot of nice places to use Wesneski and may become more than a streamer.
Yeah, and he's not a fireballer per se, but his 93, 24-mile-an-hour fastball is going to play up in that rotation when you've got others that aren't even throwing 90, right? I mean, maybe that's a little bit of a straw man or exaggeration, but he has a few things that rotation does not have. Wesneski throws the ball a little harder than, Hendricks is hurt, but Stroman and Tyone and even Justin Steele. Of course, when Kyle Hendricks, I think at this point, I guess we're not quite in if territory, but it seems like we're getting closer to if than when with Kyle Hendricks. But Wesneski
he's hurt, right?
So right, but it's not so much when he comes back, but we're getting close to if back territory. As a starter, right? Wesneski has at least beaten out in our estimation Adrian Sampson and Javier Assad. Assad's looked pretty good. Sampson's had his up and downs, but Wesneski had a bummer of an appearance earlier in the spring, but he recovered from it, as you suggested, last time out.
Yeah, pretty darn excited about Wesneski, and you still get him. He's one of those upside guys that you can still get at a pretty reasonable
price,
for sure.
As
far as I'm concerned. That may not be the case after yesterday's outing, but right now you can still get Hayden Wesneski at a reasonable acquisition cost. Real quick, I just wanted to note that Alex Cobb might miss the start of the season. He's got that knee issue. Actually, first sustained the injury back on March 11th on a comebacker, and just hasn't progressed. I thought when that first happened, like, oh, he should be fine. Plenty of time, but Cobb may begin the season on the IL, and so I think you lower him a decent amount in your rankings. Yohan Duran threw an inning yesterday, so he's back in action after taking a comebacker off his leg in a minor league game last weekend. Then Yordan Alvarez finally made his spring debut yesterday. So that long national nightmare for Astros fans and for people who are already rostering Yordan Alvarez in fantasy. That nightmare seems over, but it could be a Freddy Krueger type of waking nightmare sort of thing.
Yeah, with that mysterious hand injury. Now you mentioned Cobb. I forget the second pitcher that just got hit. It's not like their elbow or their shoulders hurt. Their legs hurt because of a bruise. What's taking so long? The problem is in your delivery, either you push off or your landing feet. The concern, even if it's just a bruise, is altering your motion, right? To altering your delivery, so it doesn't hurt as much when I land, and that's where the arm injury then comes from. So you want just hitting the knee or hitting the leg and it hurts. Why can't he pitch? That's pretty much the reason there. And Alvarez, it's not like they know why his hands have been hurting the past year. Yes, he produced wonderfully when he was healthy. Will he be able to play through it again this year, or will something need to be done as far as correcting it? So it is a risk. We're talking underdog. Alvarez was one of my favorite. I think I jokingly and not so jokingly did a draft. I don't have any Alvarez yet, and I think I got the 5th pick, and they're like, cool, I'm going to get Alvarez tonight, and he went 4th. So I don't know that I'll be doing that anymore as far as Alvarez goes. I've got my piece, but wow, he hits so well, right, when he's healthy, but they don't know why his hands keep getting hurt.
Yeah, it's a little scary, but you have to at least feel a little better that he got into some spring games, at least saw some live pitches.
Yeah.
So take note that Yordan did make his debut hitless, but at least he was active for a Grapefruit League game. All right, real quick, we're going to pause, bring you a quick word from our friends at Fantrax. Fantrax is the most customizable fantasy platform in the industry, offering the greatest fantasy experience for your dynasty keeper, redraft, and best ball leagues. Every fantasy league kind of has its own history, and if your league has been around a while and has evolved to include different categories, maybe you guys have made some unique rules for your own specific league over the years. Well, Fantrax can customize for whatever you want. Maybe you do 7x7 now, or so maybe you do old school 4x4. You can do whatever you need. Fantrax makes it super easy. You can import any of your current leagues and customize as needed. And they offer the most in-depth player pool in the industry. I'm regularly getting emails noting new players added to the pool, some that I've never even heard of. Most I've never heard of. They're all over it. Do you need a customizable commissioner service for your fantasy league? Fantrax is the only answer. Waivers, categories, scoring system, schedule. Fantrax offers custom solutions for all that and more. And the best part, it is free. Sign up for free today and be entered to win an official MLB signed jersey from Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Simply go to fantrax.com/RotoWire and sign up today. That's fantrax.com/RotoWire. Fantrax, the home of fantasy sports. I was lucky enough to do a main event draft last night, picking 3rd, and with that, I got my number 1 player on the board. Julio Rodriguez is my number 1. I got him. Thrilled with that. And then Mike Trout was still there when it came back to me in the 2nd. So 15-team league, that would put Trout at 28 overall. I thought maybe he'd get a little helium after the WBC, but it seems like actually his pitchers are getting pushed up in the main event anyway. Trout is falling.
Yeah. All right. So you got 2 outfielders. That's not really a big deal in today's pool. It's a little bit thin, and you can find some infielders a little bit later. Yeah, that's an interesting start. I've got Rodriguez in the top 5. So, taking him number 3, I don't have number 1. I have Trey Turner still at number 1, then Jose Ramirez at 2. And I think I have Judge 3rd, but then I'm going to have to ask myself that question. It's so close to Rodriguez, who I think I have 4th. It's like, which, they're both risky. Which has the greater upside? And maybe Rodriguez. I don't, if I want the steal. So to me, that's a toss up. But I have the number 1 pick in a DC Express tonight, and it's going to be Trey Turner for both of you that are listening.
Hey, we got 31 eyes on the chat right now, so or on the live stream. So your advice is not falling on deaf
we got
ears.
62 eyes. I don't want to.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. So in the 3rd, I took Real Muto. I was really considering jumping a starting pitcher. It is the main event after all. But I decided to roll the dice, get the best catcher in the game, get some steals from a position that you never get steals from. Love GT Realmuto. But then it was time to start putting together the Yellow Brick Road, Todd. I had to, after 3 straight hitters in the main event, you got to start hammering pitching. And that's what I did with the next 4 picks and actually 5 of the next 6 picks. My first pitcher was Ryan Pressly. So, 2 of my first 3 pitchers were Ryan Pressly and Clay Holmes. I kind of went with the ace reliever strategy since I got priced out on, or I guess I should say because I passed on the top tier starters.
Yeah, well, you had me with your first 2 and you lost me. No, I'm just kidding. So many different ways to skin the proverbial cat.
Oh yeah. Nobody has all the answers in this game.
I mean, if this were an online RotoWire online, I'm not even sure that you would have done the same thing with a 12-team league. But in a 15, it also does it kind of speak to your trust to build a pitching staff later in the middle of end rounds, or
I think you could say that because what's more important to me than like getting an ace, quote unquote, or getting 2 aces, whatever, is just building the best staff 1 through 9.
Yeah,
I think that's the challenge. It's not, am I going to get my ace? The challenge is building the whole staff.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I've often said I'll let you beat me 1 to 3, but I'm gonna beat the heck out of you 4 to 8. That's kind of where I'm looking, and maybe that involves some streaming and spot starting, but that's kind of my plan. I'll let you have a better top 3. I want to have a better stat, and if it's not better, it's close enough that the edge I have in hitting because I wasn't investing in pitching early will make the team better. Has it worked out that way every single time? Heck no. But that's at least my approach. And I don't know. I just I need to make some changes to win a little bit more, but I still have to do what's most logical. And we talk about, we need an ace. You also talk about needing at bats. The at bats come from the first couple rounds. So it's you can't have everything.
True. And so while I went with that, 2 guys who I think are top 11-ish closers, Pressly and Holmes, those are kind of it's like in the dual pillar closer strategy. But in between them, I sandwiched Joe Musgrove, who I bumped up significantly in light of his progress from the toe injury, dropped a weight on his toe. Joe Musgrove did a little while back, but making great progress. Sounds like he could, be ready pretty much right away, April 6th, potentially. So maybe just, maybe I could have him for the first full week of action. And look, I think I bumped him back up to like around 55. It's a stretch. I get it. But do you think Joe Musgrove could end up passing as an ace in a 15-teamer?
I think he's a bottom end ace because I don't want to say a catch-22, but there's an issue kind of, I'll correct my own mistake in my own statement here in that I don't think with the 6-man rotation and a little bit hurt early on, I have him projected for 28 games. I'll have the studs projected for 31, 32 games. The Garrett Coles, the Coburn Burns. So he's a little bit behind as far as that goes. However, once you get into those 30-game start, if you feel I would take Musgrove at 28 better than over a guy that I feel will get, say, 30 starts. That's a little bit worse, but the magic formula puts him higher because the 30-start guy is going to get more Ks and potentially a win or 2 more, and the ratios aren't that much worse that it affects things too much. So yeah, I'm not at all averse to having Musgrove. I haven't run my numbers after the update yet, so I don't know exactly where I have him. I could try to find out as we're speaking, at least amongst pitchers, where I have Musgrove, but I've always had him in that 15 to 20 range amongst starters. So yeah, he's a back end SP1, high end SP2.
Yeah, even though he may get a slightly delayed start to the season, I still think he's a good bet to push up toward 180 innings where he's been past 2 years. So yeah, I had to get creative a little bit, but I don't hate Joe Musgrove as an ace, and especially when you go with the super heavy hitting early. Grabbed Chris Sale as my SP2. I admit that's a stretch, but then I really like Drew Rasmussen as my SP3 in a 15-teamer. I was happy with that. And then I did grab Anthony Volpe in the 11th, and I'm not really in the business of handcuffing in fantasy. It kind of limits your upside, but I grabbed Oswald Peraza a little later. Then I did that kind of thing with Jared Shuster and Dylan Dodd as well. So, my final pitching spot on my active roster, I added Shuster. Then in the reserves, I grabbed Dodd. Both guys are shoving this spring. Do you have a preference there? Are you interested in one or either of these guys?
I don't put my eyes on these guys like James does, etc. Does the research that on prospects, it's that sort of thing. It's all number scouting and reading the numbers. It seems as though Shuster has a small leg up, so I guess it's Shuster. But I ended up with Dodd as in my Tout Wars reserve draft. I don't think I got Shuster. So, I think early on they both could pitch, and maybe they're pitching to see who stays in the rotation. Maybe when Soroka comes back, they'd have to go to a 6-man because right now they're pitching for number 5, but someone could get hurt, etc.
Yeah, I mean, you need at least 8 pitchers to get through a big league season.
Probably, yeah.
And I think both those guys could be valuable at certain points, and this at least gives me some time to wait and see what happens. And same with Peraza and Volpe. I think both of those guys could be valuable. So it's not something where it's a total handcuff. It's right. A handcuff with upside, I'd say.
Yeah.
Grab Christopher Morel. You're not a big Morel guy, are you?
I am just concerned where he's going to play more than anything else. So maybe playing a little bit here, a little bit there is good for him. I don't know. I just don't know where. And this is a team that doesn't have the Cubs, set 9, but I have trouble finding out where he's going to play, or maybe I'm wrong. He's going to play a little bit. Maybe it's a feature, not a bug of Morel, in that he can play everywhere. I don't know. I just do we have him number 1 of the depth chart anywhere? We do not, but we've got him second and third, and a little bit second base, center field. I'm just not sure where he's going to play. Or someone's hurt. Suzuki's hurt.
Yeah.
So that could move Mancini to the outfield. You also have Edwin Rios to help out. Say Patrick Wisdom goes to DH, and you can have Morel and or Rios play third. So early on, there's some potential playing time for Morel. But now that Nick Madrigal is healthy and Horner moved over to second, that's where Morel would naturally play. I don't know where he's going to play.
Yeah, I saw he had Homer the other day, and not that means much, but he has second base and OF eligibility.
Yeah.
Gives me a little flexibility with Oswald Peraza. If he doesn't do anything, maybe I could move Morel to middle infield and start like David Hensley. That could be what I'm looking at if I have to on opening day. But we'll see what the Yankees do with that decision. I do think Volpe's probably getting the nod, and that probably means Oswald Peraza to the minors. But I still think I'll probably hold on to Oswald Peraza for a little bit, see how he does, and maybe if Donaldson gets off to a bad start, maybe hold on to him a little bit longer. Brian Bayo was the guy I got in the reserves. Bayo's got a forearm issue for your Red Sox right now, Todd, but I just saw from Chris Cotillo of MassLive.com that Brian Bayo pitched in a minor league game today, Friday. on the backfields. 3 innings pitched, 1 earned run, 4 Ks. So 42 pitches for Bayo on the backfields, 24 strikes. I like this stuff, and I just feel like inevitably, like when he's healthy, I feel like Brian Bayo is definitely going to be in that rotation. Am I wrong about that?
There's so many injuries. It's tough to say, but I think the Red Sox want to have him in there, at least towards the back end. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets more seasoning. James Paxton, Garrett Whitlock, and up front you've got obviously Sale, who we talked about, Kluber, Pivetta. So I don't know that it's a sure thing, but with that back into that staff, I think Bayo gets some time at some point. But he is working on a third pitch. Wouldn't be too surprised if he's in the minors to try to hone that. Now he's got the fastball and the devastating changeup. Needs fastball command for it all to work better.
And I got I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his name right now. The other Red Sox starter, but he's
Tanner Houck.
Tanner Houck, of course. I had H in my head, but I was thinking Hensley because I just said his name. But yeah, Houck. So I got more kind of insurance there. So I kind of built a lot of insurance into this roster, actually. But I actually like Houck quite a bit too. And they're already dealing with depth issues in Boston. And just upside, I think, with both Bayo and Houck.
Yeah, they're arms you want, and I think Whitfield in the same. You put Whitfield in there too. These are arms you want. We don't know the roles. Signing
Whitlock. Did you say? I think you said Whitfield, but
yeah,
you had Garrett Whitlock.
I did. Right? Yeah, I probably Whitburger and with this and with that. Garrett Whitlock, yes. Whataburger.
Just wanted to confirm. Hey, they're making a Whataburger.
Well, no, actually, do I look like Colette? But no, I'm a Five Guys guy. Once in a while.
See, I'm a Culver's guy. They probably
okay.
You may not be familiar with Culver's.
No, I think they're regional. I think there's something else here and something else there. Yeah, Tanner Houck and Woodford. That's Brad Woodford from Aerosmith. Now I'm just being silly. I'm trying to think of all the different wits I can. But Ed Whitson, here we go. Whitlock, they're all hurt. James Paxton's hurt. See, I think when Houck's, I think would be great if they would piggyback Paxton and Houck. And you've got the lefty righty, you've got the junk ball. Well, Paxton's not a junk ball, but you've got the contrast in styles. I don't know that that's how they will go. To try to overtake Baltimore in fourth. Oh boy, if that's the goal. You got Chris Sale. I didn't get to make the joke last time we spoke, but at least you don't have to worry about the Red Sox saving innings for the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that's probably out of reach this year. It's just a tough division, and they just have a lot of blow-up risk. It seems like a lot of volatility on that roster. Feels like a lot of things could go wrong. They have a new leader in the clubhouse, and Rafael Devers. They really want him. It seems like to step up and take that leadership role.
I know it's whatever. You mentioned the Red Sox. Now I'm going to go off. No, I'm just. It's the whole leadership role. So many things are in limbo. I want Bogarts to step up. Well, pay him. Martinez, JD is kind of he was also somewhat lame duck and kind of quiet. So I do think the fact that they signed Devers and they like him, I think he can be a leader now that, the scenario sort of dictates it. Is he going to be the rah-rah? I don't know. I think he's more of a leader by the way he plays as opposed to being back. It's still, Kiki Hernandez. There's still other guys that have the reputation for being the behind-the-scenes leaders. But I think Devers is at a point now where we could start to see some even better stuff coming from Devers. I paid $35 in an auction for him last night. May have chased a buck or two, but looking forward to being able to root for him 2 different ways this year.
Uncle Ted Talk says in the chat that he's passing on Houck and that he'd actually rather have Dre Jameson of Arizona than Houck.
Well,
I disagree, but Jameson is an interesting arm.
I think Jameson is starting. We don't know Houck is a guy that you want in an AL only, I suppose. We don't. If he's not starting and he's not closing, he could be really, really good, but just not that great for fantasy. And I think that's where we're at with Tanner Houck now, in that he's probably going to be the ultimate swingman. And deeper leagues, okay, but there are just so many. I think there's so many good pitching options in today's game. Jameson being one. He's injured, and Arizona's an improving team, but absolutely, Jameson, you can make an argument for one of your back end streaming starters.
And while we're on the topic of the Diamondbacks, I just want to mention that in Tout Wars last weekend, and just the NFBC drafts getting underway, I've been seeing Scott McGough, McGough, that's the spelling, of Arizona, being drafted seemingly as the closer. And I got the sense doing XM with you today, Todd, that you're I don't want to say very much, but you're interested in McGough.
If you're playing the speculative closer game, I think he's gone from, all right, he's the only one left, I'll take McGough, to in that bucket of speculative closers. Mm-hmm. Now there's a bucket of like Jason Adams and Paul Sewolds, who you're going to get like 10 saves, 15 saves. And then there's the McGoughs and, I don't know, Boxberger and who else would Hughes is hurt. Who else is the Cubs guy now? We talked about him earlier.
The guy Fulmer?
Fulmer. They're more of the speculative type that get the job. They could be the closer. So do I want McGough and maybe get 20, 25 saves, or do I want to lock in Jason Adams 10? It depends on the team. It depends on what I'm doing, how I want to go about it. McGough or Kyle Finnegan, that's kind of tough because Finnegan probably has a job, but it's somewhat precarious, and how many saves we get from the Nationals sort of thing. McGough or Kimbrel, I think maybe McGough is the choice there. So somewhat format and context dependent, but Ginkel. Actually, Ginkel's pitched really well. Kevin Ginkel has pitched well this spring. So we can't.
Yeah, that's a name it's good to throw out there.
Can't just shake it off. But McGough closed, and one of us should have looked this up over the break where he pitched, right? It was overseas.
Japan, yeah.
Okay. He closed in Japan, and he closed successfully. So, whether he carries that over or not, he does have ninth inning experience.
Good point. Yeah, man. I mean, and there's very much, nobody there with experience. So he could slot in as the closer. And I had him in mind to take last night in the main event. He went, I think, earlier in the reserves, early reserves. Okay. I ended up pulling a James Anderson page out of the James Anderson playbook and took Ben Joyce with one of my final picks. The closer role's pretty wide open there in Anaheim, too. I know Jimmy Herget and Carlos Estevez are kind of the top two guys drafted, but Ben Joyce pumps 105, folks. And
not 105
eventually,
pounds.
No, he's 105 miles per hour. And I think eventually he will be the closer there. Maybe I won't have the patience or the time to wait, but it's just a flyer to see what happens. All right, let's take a real quick break, and we'll come back with our Underdog Best Ball segment after these quick words from our Blue Wire sponsors. All right, we are back on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Clay Link here with Todd Zola, and we will now transition to our Underdog Best Ball segment of the week. Had a lot of fun talking best ball with you and doing these dinger drafts on Underdog, having a lot of fun. And values are always changing. It's always a moving target. So we'll talk about some players that we're personally bumping up, the players on the rise for us personally. And number one on my list, Todd, is Miguel Vargas. Drafted him last night in the main too, but I just always find him going way lower than he should. I always jump I think I've been taking him the 160s. His ADP on Underdog's around 200. So I've been jumping several rounds to get him. And as I've become more familiar with the Underdog format, and just how I go about building teams, I've started to go outfielder really heavy, and that leaves me cleaning up on these infielders. And Vargas, just a great price. So as I'm looking to make up infielders late and get to 7 infielders, Vargas is a guy I love adding to my team.
I'll be completely honest. I have not played for a little over a week. We had Tout Wars, and I had work to do when I got back. Now, one of the beauties of Underdog is, it's not, drafts at night. They're literally drafts 24/7. If there are 10 people that want to draft at the same time, it's just kind of a running roster of drafts. My point being, I can make up a lot of drafts because I can draft during the day next week before the season starts. So I'm going to make up for the lost time. I don't know exactly who are risers because I'm not sure of the field now. But in general, maybe I need to think about it more. But we only have 20 spots. I want to kind of, at least in my estimation, know the guys playing and playing regularly. And I don't know that Vargas is there for me yet. On the other hand, when there's 2.5 million, well, maybe not 2.5 million, when there's so many people playing this game and you want to win, you want to win the overall, you need differentiation, and Vargas is perfect for that. So I see the plus, and this is the same thinking I have in DFS, where I'm a cash game player because I want safety. I know to win the tournaments, you need to take a chance on some of these guys, and it's just not completely built in. Now, I have so many underdog teams that I probably should take a chance on a Vargas and more of them. So I'm writing that down. Vargas, VA. Okay, we're good.
Yeah, I think the Dodgers are high on him, and I think they're going to need him in the middle of that lineup. I had top 5 players on the rise, but these 2 I bundled together, and it's kind of cheating because they're getting a ton of helium in the NFBC. But Jeffrey Springs and Drew Rasmussen, both guys really exciting, and pretty much you can throw their ADP out the window at this point. If you want them, you're going to have to jump them quite a bit, and I've been seeing them go earlier and earlier, and I've been the one forcing the issue on occasion on both Springs and Rasmussen. So 2 players very much on the rise for me, both in Underdog and in Standard Roto.
Yeah, I'm looking through my rostership levels, and I know I have a lot of Rasmussen, and I'm at the point where I have him on at least 4 teams, and I haven't seen Rasmussen's name yet, so I have him on more than 4 teams. So I agree with you on Rasmussen. Yeah, you know what? Springs is the way to get the differentiation, and he throws innings, and that counts. That counts on Underdog. I love Tampa pitching in general, so I kind of am with both of those picks.
Next up on my top 5 players on the rise on Underdog, Hayden Wesneski. Love what this kid is showing this spring, and we talked a little bit about him on XM, and just been catching the attention of a lot of people. I think we talked about him on this show too. They all run together a little bit, but 2.12 ERA this spring, 22-6 K to walk in 17 innings. He's there way late. I wouldn't wait until your final rounds, but final few rounds, I'd make sure you get Hayden Wesneski on your team. I love him as a 6th or 7th pitcher on your team.
Yeah, I'm kind of frowning right now because I'm seeing Brendan Rodgers on 8 teams and Vaughn Grissom on 7. Wow. Well, these are like my, if you say 6 and 7.
Yeah.
And I'm not giving up on Grissom yet. We didn't talk about him at all yet so far. So,
but yeah, I know you were very much invested.
I'm
sorry, but no, sure you'll be fine.
We can when we're past the Underdog, we can move into that. But yeah, Wesneski, I'm only drafting 6 pitchers now. Do I trust him enough to pitch all year long? I think it depends upon who's available. I'm not taking Nick Pivetta, who's often available late, guys like that. So I can see shooting for the stars with Wesneski, absolutely.
So I've been doing the 7-7-6 roster breakdown. You're no longer doing that? 7 pitchers, 7 infielders, 6
I'm to 6 pitchers. Talking to Scott from baseball on, I think, our podcast. He suggests 6-7-7. Mainly, and I'm
for me, outfield is so ugly that I don't want to get a 7th one. But
that's one reason to do it is you have another shot for someone to jump in. And
that's a good point.
And I kind of agree with him in that you want the reason to do this is to get a couple of really good starters and lock in maybe your 2 guys that are going to get in there every week. And now you have 4 guys because the lineups as 3 pitchers, 3 infielders, 3 outfielders, and a flex. Then the other 4 pitchers battling for that final pitching spot as opposed to 5 pitchers battling. So, and to get that extra infielder or outfielder. So that's what early on it was 7 pitchers. I've been at 6 lately, not and trying to get a couple of aces early. It helps that I'm on Wheeler and Gausman, who, at least when I was playing a couple of weeks ago, I was ahead of the market. So it was I knew I could get them. I don't know how it is now.
Yeah, I just think the roster construction is an interesting part of the Underdog and something I've had to learn. And I think it's definitely very different building a team on Underdog compared to just the standard Roto League. Next up on my list of players on the rise in Underdog, Jurickson Profar. All has to do with him landing in Colorado. So I've been taking him over guys like Jake Fraley and those types as one of my final outfielders. And as I was doing the board for NL Labor last weekend, and Peter Kreutzer got Profar for like $3 or $4 in the NL only.
Yeah,
$3. And then he signed with Colorado like 15 minutes later. So it was great timing for him. And now that he has this landing spot, because the outfield gets so ugly, I like jumping Profar way ahead of ADP. He'll be buried on Underdog for the time being.
Yeah, I'm looking. I got him in one league, and just why not? And this is months ago or weeks ago. All right, best ball, you want to embrace variance, you want to embrace splits. Yeah, there are going to be weeks where Colorado's home 7 games, and Profar is your third outfielder. To me, that's what you're looking for with those outfielders at the end. You're looking for reasons for them to have a spike week, good ballpark, that sort of thing.
And my number 5, players on the rise, we talked about it earlier, and I gave a spoiler alert. James Outman. Just another situation where, look, it gets hairy there. Outfield is so pushed up on Underdog. Why not take a chance on him over Nelson Cruz or some of those really ugly outfielders at the end? Outman is buried by ADP, but I noticed last night I did a couple after my main event because I still had the itch. And I'm loving Underdog. Just knock out a draft super quickly. And I missed Outman in the main event, so I got him late in a few subsequent Underdogs. And old for his level, but number scouting just looks really strong, James Outman.
Yeah, I'm just not sure that if it's my 7th outfielder and I'm looking for differentiation, yes, because those few weeks he pops into that number 3 spot, you could be getting more points than everybody else. Now, no, it's not what we're talking about. You mentioned buried in ADP. It is so easy to download their being Underdog's CSV rankings and either copy paste your rankings using Excel lookups and all that stuff, or just simply, cut, paste, and, rearrange that sheet, re-upload it. So you're not looking at their ADP. You're looking at your rankings. Their ADP is listed, but he's not buried if you're using your rankings. And it's so easy to input your own rankings.
Yeah, I just mean if you don't have that and you're just doing it on your phone or whatever, you throw them in your queue so you don't forget.
Right. No, absolutely. I'm just saying it's a boon of this site where it's just so easy to take their CSV, alter it, and put it back in, and you get your rankings.
Yeah, totally. That's a great feature of Underdog. And that'll do it for Underdog Best Ball segment of the week.
Underdog.
I've had a ton of fun playing Underdog, and I'm going to be doing I got about $90 on my account still, so I'm going to be doing about a draft per night every day until opening day. And I also want to just give you a little bit more information about Underdog. The fantasy baseball season is underway, and there's no better place to play than Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to play fantasy baseball. Right now, Underdog has MLB Best Ball tournaments live, including the Dinger, which I've been playing a lot. The Dinger has $500,000 in total prizes. In Best Ball, all you do is join a contest, draft your team, and that's it. There are no waivers, no trades, and no in-season management. Draft 20 rounds of players and get the best cumulative scores in your starting lineups each week. That's 3 pitchers, 3 infielders, 3 outfielders, and 1 flex. Getting started is simple. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com, sign up with promo code RWMLB, and not only will Underdog double your initial deposit up to $100, but you'll also get 6 months of our RotoWire subscription for free. Again, that's Underdog Fantasy promo code RWMLB. Draft your $100,000 Dinger team today. Well, I already have the $100,000 team drafted, so you can aim for second place on Underdog. Well, Todd, let's talk a little bit about Vaughn Grissom, who you alluded to. You're going to be in a tough spot in a couple leagues. How are you going to, if you can, how do you think you're going to make up for the demotion of Vaughn Grissom on your fantasy teams?
Well, first, I got him at a discount, at least according to my numbers, and I was fully aware of the scenario. I did not expect – I was aware of it, and I expected him to still win the job. I think I paid $17 for him, and I had him as a $27 player, something like that. It was in the 25.
Paid $17 for him in the NL only.
NL only Tout Wars, yeah. Over last weekend, I think I had him at $25 to $30 tier. I think he'll be back. I think he'll be up. And I know there's a lot of talk about he's getting more – Atlanta wants more control. They don't play control. They extend their youngsters, right? So I mean
they have so many team friendly contracts that they would. I don't think service time is a consideration here.
Yeah, honestly. I mean, so I think it's genuine why they want him to go down, and whether it's to get more reps in a game they just haven't seen enough at shortstop, etc. But I think he'll be up. What I meant in Tout was it's so tough to replace, even in reserve. It's really hard to find active players to backfill. I don't know what my team's going to have. I think I've got Vientos right now and enough flexibility to get Mark Vientos in my lineup, which people are saying who, or they're saying Blech, one or the other. I don't know which. But there were, over the past weekend, there was some scenarios for Vientos to get more playing time with the Mets. So I took a shot. We shall see. But yeah, I don't know. I guess, I mean, I don't think we've seen the last of Vaughn Grissom, and that's kind of a dumb thing to say. Of course we haven't, but I say a lot of dumb things. But Arcia at shortstop, I don't know. I just see I do see Grissom coming up before June, and in order to earn 17, I just need him to play 4 months.
It's kind of a tough spot, second base to backfill, as you kind of alluded to. Like it kind of gets a little ugly there. I wonder if maybe some people will look at like Michael Massey of the Royals as a fill-in at second. I saw him drafted in the main. I don't see it, but people who drafted Grissom are going to be in a tough spot.
It's more about it's quantity, not quality. So Joey Wendell, there are guys available. They're just not studs. So I'm looking at all right. I have Yuli Gurriel as well. At the time there was a possibility that Gurriel would play a little bit for Miami. Now both he and Iglesias could be on the roster bubble, mainly because the Marlins want to keep both Jesus Sanchez and Brian De La Cruz. La Cruz would have been on the bubble previously because he has options left and Sanchez does not. So yeah, how I fill in is going to be tough, especially because I've got both JD Martinez and Nelson Cruz. But like I said, I've got enough flexibility that I could pretty much take almost any position and find a way to make it work. All right, any infielder. No, I got Will Myers in the outfield. So I could probably replace Grissom with anybody. I got Josh Rojas at second. So yeah, I can easily, or for second. The best available hitter, I can replace Grissom. Unfortunately, I think you're the best available hitter.
That's pretty bad, to say the least. Yeah, so, we're not giving up on Grissom, but maybe you overdrafted him a little bit. I got to own up to a guy I probably overdrafted in a few spots, Kyle Bradish. Like the skills, but he was just rocked for 9 earned runs in a single not Cactus League. I think that's Grapefruit League, right, for the O's? I believe so.
Yes. Yep.
Single spring out and gave him 9 earned runs, and now it's sounding like, Kyle Bradish may not even make that opening day rotation. So he's a guy I lowered pretty big. I mean, if they don't go with him, we're looking like maybe Tyler Wells, Cole Irvin, Dean Kramer, all in that rotation. I thought that would be a pretty easy spot for Bradish to win, but suddenly it's looking like not so fast as far as cementing him into that rotation.
Well, this goes with Grissom as well, in that, especially in only leagues, one of my favorite kind of targets are those that were expected to win the job but didn't, because you usually end up getting the job and you get him at a discount. Sure, I would have liked more of a discount than now that I know the ultimate being, the difference between being sent down and not playing him much early with Grissom. But yeah, I mean, if you liked Bradish before, I think you should still like him. Hopefully, knock on wood, you're in a league where you can stash and not, soften the rest of your roster.
Yeah, Bradish is not a guy I'm going to be looking to drop in this fab period or even the next necessarily. But if he doesn't make that team, he could be kind of a tough hold, because while I like the skills, I don't know if they're quite to the level of mustache. If Bradish is in the minors for a while, so I have to wait and see. But I paid $4 for him in Tout Wars head to head last week, which is a 12-team mix. So I probably would rather have that $4 back to spend elsewhere right now. We'll see though. Okay, I had one last thing as we wrap things up. Raisel Iglesias is hurt for Atlanta, so AJ Minter's suddenly becoming a bit of a trendy guy. He's getting some helium, as you'd expect, because looks like he will be filling in at closer for Atlanta. Now, Iglesias says he's hoping for a minimal stay, but who knows? It could turn into longer. And you mentioned you're playing for the next 2 weeks, so Minter, I'd assume, is on your draft list at this point.
Picked him up for $2 in the auction last night, nice. NFBC auction last night, with David Robertson as my only other closer. So we'll see. A little surprised that maybe Atlanta will still go with a air quote committee, but Minter was one of the top holds guys last year. Even though he's a lefty, Snicker just wants the best guy in the ninth, I guess, and he feels it's Minter.
Yeah, Minter.
Yates is coming on there.
Who is?
Kirby Yates. Coming on a bit.
I'll tell you a guy who's coming on a little bit and confirmed for the Reds opening day rotation. So we're all excited about. Graham Ashcraft. I saw, Saris had a tweet about his Stuff Plus grades, yeah. Graham Ashcraft. And that's something that you can just see when watching him. He's got good stuff. And team context is a big negative, but as a reserve pick, I don't hate it. And I was actually kind of mad when I got sniped on Ashcraft last night.
Yeah. Our buddy Jeff Erickson's been, what was his? He's not ready to take the Ashcraft cruise yet, or whatever his pun was.
World of Ashcraft.
The world of Ashcraft. Not ready to go there yet. I mean, watched him a couple times last year. One very fateful time when I believe I had him in DFS, and I didn't do well in DFS that night. I don't know if it was a tout daily night or not, but yeah, he'll get strikeouts. Yeah, I think I write notes for freelance for a different project, and I think I wrote that Ashcraft has designs on making the Reds into a big 3 and not big 2. A little bit of a stretch there, even calling Green and Lodolo a big 2, but a lower level big 3. And I got to get over that one start that I saw him and not let it hurt my future feelings, but that's tough to do. No, I like to see it, because to me the Reds are one of those teams where they're taking a lot of stuff behind the scenes. I guess it's because they don't have a plan. I'd like to see what their plan is. But you and Jed, there's so many people I know that follow the team. I'd like, Doug Dennis, I'd like you guys to be a little happier.
Well, it just kind of comes with being a Reds fan. You kind of just get used to it. Maybe in a few years we'll finally have a light at the end of the tunnel. But you may have missed it, but Graham Ashcraft on Wednesday against San Diego, 6 innings, 1 hit, no earned runs, 10 strikeouts. So that's a lot. It'll open some eyes. Yeah, I mean, you saw him on Pitching Ninja, maybe. I saw him there.
Yeah.
Yeah, 10 Ks over 6 innings, built up quite a bit. So, yeah, I'm thinking he's a guy who probably will be jumped up a fair amount this weekend. I liked him when he first came in, and I remember Kyle Farmer talking about how, man, this guy might have the best stuff on the team. From a stuff standpoint, Ashcraft is really good. We'll see if he's able to hone it. That was a stretch even back then. But he does have good stuff. We'll see if he's able to take a step forward and overcome Great American Small Park. Speaking of Great American Small Park, you know what park I'm kind of thinking is going to play kind of like Coors Light this year in the vein of Great American Ballpark last year?
No,
Rogers Center. They moved in the fences, and
but they made them higher.
I guess, yeah.
I don't know. That's the thing. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
We can model it, but we don't know.
I kind of feel like that park could see a jump in homers there. Maybe not quite Great American Ballpark levels, but
it's already a hitter's park, so that's what's going to be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
How the new dimensions affect it, and the air conditioning blowing in or out, we don't know that yet. And I've got a lot invested in the Blue Jays pitching with Gaussman and Manoah, so I'm hoping that at least those two can keep the ball in the yard, and let's see what happens with the rest. But yeah, it's already, you watch it on TV, it doesn't look like a hitter's park, but it kind of is. So, and that goes beyond the fact they have good hitters.
I think it was Steve Phillips, former Mets GM, who was talking on XM about the park changes and how, I mean, it probably won't be like Dunedin or Buffalo, but it could be like kind of like a minor league bandbox in effect there at Rogers Center. Great stuff today, Todd. Anything else on your mind, man?
Nah, my mind is fried. I'm saying that somewhat tongue in cheek. Looking forward to working with you over the weekend.
XM the next 2 days.
We got our buddies Jeff and James are off drafting winners in Vegas. One of these years we'll both get back there and challenge them perhaps. But for right now they're repping us, hopefully doing it very well. And I got to do a bunch of work this afternoon to darn it, MLB, all these moves all at once. I was doing some work. I looked at the news yesterday, and Iglesias and Hoskins and yada, all these moves. It's good to see. We at least get them out of the way. One more week, we'll be talking about cuts for this time next week. We'll talk about who made the team. And what else will we be doing this time next week?
2-star pitcher grades.
There we go. Yeah.
God, I can't believe that's already here. Well, we'll do our thing, man. I'm looking forward to another strong season.
Yep.
Of course, draft season is important, and the draft is hugely important. But staying on top of your fab moves is half the battle, honestly. So we'll do our best to help you out every Friday throughout the season. We are sponsored by Fantrax and Underdog Fantasy. Good luck with this huge draft weekend, and we'll catch you soon on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast.